Hi, I'm Tommy Gibbs. Thanks for taking time to watch this podcast. This podcast series is titled What's Your Story? And that's exactly what it is. I'm going to be interviewing people and let them tell us their story. I've always been intrigued, amused, found it fascinating people's stories from the time they started out as a young person to where they've gotten to today. So the focus is going to be getting people to tell us their story. I mean, when I meet people, the first thing that pops in my head is I want to say to them, "Hey, tell me what's your story." So that's what we're going to be doing. We're going to be learning some great stories. So stay tuned and thanks for watching the podcast. Hey, I'm Tommy Gibbs, and thanks for joining us in my podcast titled What's Your Story? And the story we're going to learn about today is the one and only Roger Hendon. Roger, say hello to this millions of people watching this podcast.
Hey, hello, good morning. Thanks for having me, Tommy. What an opportunity to be in the presence of a
Uh,
legend, a car legend. So thank you very
I'm,
much for having me.
I'm thrilled to have you on the show here. So Roger, tell me, go back to about around high school. Where'd you go to high school at? Where'd you grow up and go to high school at?
You're telling me my age, man. So I went to Madison Central High School. It was back in the '90s.
Where's that?
Um, that is in Madison, Mississippi.
Okay. So you're from
Yeah.
Mississippi originally? Is that kind of the home turf?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir. Home turf.
And you went to high school?
Born and raised in a little town called Tutwiler, Mississippi, which ain't nothing there but cotton fields.
What
So
were you involved in sports or anything in high school?
I was obviously I was involved in football and all up through the years from Pee Wee to high school and decided to join the military and became a military police officer and went to Fort Hood, Texas and did 5 years and did a couple combat tours and got out and got into the insurance business and um, insurance led me to writing insurance on car dealerships, and I guess they seen something they liked because I had a guy kept trying to recruit me, and you'll be a great car guy, and obviously when you own an insurance agency, those hours are not much once you get it rolling, right? So, and then the money obviously is really well.
So back up, hold on, Roger. So you went in the insurance business. Did you own your own agency?
I did, yeah,
Okay. And you
two
were
of them
writing,
actually,
go ahead.
two of them actually.
So you were writing insurance for automobiles for the retail customer, or were you dealing with dealers and doing that? How'd that work?
So I was both. I was a multi-line agency. So what I would do is I could do, stock market. If you want to do investments, I could do simple IRAs for your employees. I could write regular car insurance. I could do life insurance. I can sell you bonds or stocks or mutual funds or, so I was a multi-line and had, LUTCF and college and 5 years
Okay.
worth of schooling and all the best of the best. The American college is known throughout the industry as the leader, like the National Association of Insurance and Professionals. NAIFA is what it's called.
Okay.
Um, so I was a member of all those things and got tied into a gentleman by the name of Tim Short uh, years and decades ago and wrote a lot of insurance on his um, his dealerships and he kept saying, "Man, you'd be a great car guy." So I ended up going to work for him, sold my insurance agencies when the app on the iPhone came out because I knew I was about to be replaced, and thank God I did. Because you don't need an insurance agent today, right? You can just do it on
Right.
your phone. So I see a lot of that in the car business, in the car world now with AI so it's I decided to sell, long story short, and got into the car business and worked my way up from.
Roger, hold on a second. When you were in the insurance business, was there someone that really influenced you and mentored you in that business that kind of gave you some foundation and roots that were above playing football and above the military? Was there someone that really kind of guided you in that business and you look back on and this was the person that kind of launched you?
That's a great question. Yes, his name was Chuck Osborne.
Okay.
Uh, Probably the best, one of the best human beings I've ever met. Taught me a lot of things that carried me into the you know especially the finance side of things in the car business.
Okay.
Um,
How old were you when you connected with, was it Mr. Short that got you in the car business? Is that who got
I
you?
was 30, roughly 30 years old.
So, and tell me about Mr. Short and how you got in the car business. Go there.
Well, Tim was known, right? Tim was known throughout Kentucky. He had a ton of dealerships. Was very successful. I mean, who didn't know Tim?
Mhm.
So, and I went to lunch with him one day, he invited me to lunch, I guess, as a top salesperson and doing a really good job overall. He invited us to lunch. That's really the first time I got to meet him. And
Were you selling cars at that time?
I was, yeah.
Because you working in his store selling cars.
Yep. It was
Okay.
called Tim Short Ford in Hazard,
Mhm.
Kentucky.
Okay. So he
And
takes you to lunch.
they took me to lunch, yeah. And it kind of, sparked from there. You know, I shortly then after got moved into finance. Um, got my teeth kicked in, as we all do. Totally different from anything I've ever done, and finally got it, a couple months in, and was able to run some pretty cool numbers, and
Were you, Roger, were you self-trained in F&I? Did you go to like JM&A school or anything like that, or they just threw you in there?
threw me in the box. Here you go, old blue screen years ago.
Yeah. So you go in the
No, it
box
wasn't.
and you have to kind of figure it out on your own. You're in the box.
Yeah, you absolutely. And if you
Yeah.
didn't, it was at the time it was 1800 of the gate.
Right.
So run it or we'll find somebody who will. And I was fortunate enough to do really well and reach out to some guys that were in the business and gave me some good pointers and I took an approach of caring about a customer, not trying to scare a customer into buying a product. And I think it,
Sure.
it ended up working out really well for me.
How
So,
long did you stay in F&I?
oh, less than a year. I don't know the exact number, but it was less than a year. I left Tim and went to a Ford store that Tim ended up buying later on down the road. But I left and went to Iville, Kentucky, which was a Honda Ford split store. So it
Okay.
was one of those grandfathered in for years and years, and they had
Yeah.
never made any money. I took a sales manager position, and about 4 months after I was there, I became the GSM and you know really moved the needle. And we historically had lost about $1 million a year in the store, and the gentleman was trying to sell it, and um, it just couldn't make any money. So really, it's not worth anything, right? There's a point, but it's in the middle of nowhere.
Right.
So last month we was there, the team was able to pump out about 199,000 in net profit, which the store had never made in the entire time he had it. So
Roger, go back to,
unbeknownst,
hold on, Roger. I hate to interrupt you, but I'm bad about that. But
no, you're fine.
when you were the GSM of that store was Ford and Honda, and you were kind of feeling your way, you became a sales manager pretty quick. Then you became a GSM, and you had obviously the store had some success. You moved the needle on it. Was there anything was there anything in particular that you did, even with a little bit of limited experience as a GSM? What if you think back on that? What did you bring to the table that made such a big difference at that time in that store?
Great question. I would say I brought some people with me
Okay.
from Tim Short
Okay.
and an enormous amount of energy and the probably the attention to detail, the little things. We weren't stickering the cars correctly. They weren't cleaned correctly. Um, we weren't buying enough inventory to even meet the expense of the department. And, I think collectively, though, if I had to say the one thing, if I were to have to pick one thing, I would say it was the buy-in and the alignment of the people that I had there
Yeah, but you
that weren't.
mentioned you used the key word energy. Energy, there's no substitute for energy enthusiasm and enthusiasm, is it? It's
No.
incredible what that can do. So you were GSM there. What happened after that?
So I was married for 17 years, well, 14 years. I was with her for 17. I had two children. and the old car business got me, you know. The long hours, the never being at home, and we ended up you know getting a divorce, and I got custody of my kids, and
Wow.
which was really, really, really difficult. I had spent everything I'd ever worked for to get them, and the judge unfortunately would not let me move back to Mississippi because I was in Kentucky at the time, because that's where she was from.
Right.
Um, and you know, they gave me a 150-mile radius. That's all I had to work with. So I went to Bristol, Tennessee, of all places.
Yeah.
Uh, and because that was literally 148.7 miles, I'll never forget.
Wow.
They only
Wow.
said it in court 25 times. Um, and took over as a sales manager for a Nissan dealership.
What year was
And
that, Roger, roughly? What year was that? Just
uh, 10 years ago, 11 years ago,
okay. So you took over a Nissan store.
yeah,
What was your job there?
sales manager,
Okay.
used car.
Mm,
Love used cars. That's when I really got heavy with Del Pollock and V Auto,
okay.
uh, and Turn, and reached out to Dale for the first time at that store roughly 10 years ago. And, was running, you know, in the top 10 V Auto performers in the country.
Did you have
Um,
much used car background before that, Roger? Had you really paid a lot of attention to it prior to that?
mm-mm. I think the advantage I probably had is coming from the insurance business, and selling commodities. I understood that cars were really commodities.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then selling investments, and when do you hold and when do you let go and when do you sell, and I think that gave me a really good understanding that if I had 50 spaces on a car lot, that each one of those spaces had to represent a monetary number of what I wanted to make and how fast I could turn those spaces every single month made sense to me,
Yeah.
just from a commodities perspective, right? So um, I learned Viata really well. Considered myself a master, which probably is not the case, right? Because there's always somebody better
Mhm.
um, than you. And I can name a few names that are just incredible operators and incredible used car guys. David Long, Brian Kramer. I mean, the list goes on, right? Those guys
Right.
are far better than Daniel DG and Clubhouse with us is a
Yeah.
phenomenal, and I mean just phenomenal people, right? So um, it's crazy. I didn't have a lot, but I learned really quick because I never put it down. I was off, but I really wasn't really off work. I was away from work, and I think the military had a lot to do with my drive and my commitment and desire to win, so I really developed a love for the car business that I didn't ever think I would really have,
I
you know.
understand that.
So
Yeah.
the winning, the starting over every month was something I was into with.
Yeah. So you were at Nissan there in the Bristol area. How long did you stay with Nissan?
Um, I didn't really know how bad that manufacturer was. It took me some time to figure that out. And sorry for saying that. I do
That's
apologize
true.
to you Nissan guys, but I think I was probably there a little over 2.5, almost 3 years.
Okay.
The only really reason I left wasn't how bad the manufacturer was, right? But I just teasing company, right? I finally got cleared through the court system to move back to Mississippi, which is really where I wanted to be. And it took a lot of, legal, things and ramifications, but finally got cleared to the judge to be able to move anywhere in the United States I wanted to move, and it's where I chose to be. It was home. I'd been away for a long time through the military, and
Hmm.
I met my wife at Fort Hood, Texas, and got married, and that's where she wanted to go, and that's where her family was, and so that's where we went. And which was great because that's how I met the car business. So I wouldn't undo it for anything. But ended up coming back to Mississippi. Got with a Toyota store and
Who was
worked for
that?
a while. That was a Toyota store on I-20 in Jackson, Mississippi.
Okay.
I won't
That's
name
okay.
any
That's
names.
all right.
Yeah, but it's still there. It was
What,
it's Harry Gear. It
what
was
was your
Harry Gear.
job there? When you went there, what was your position?
Sales manager. I
Okay.
was same thing. Wasn't any room for you know any growth there, and it was I was so excited to get back to Mississippi. To be honest with you, I didn't even have a job when I got there.
Okay.
I
So,
moved in with my
so Roger, at this point, coming up to this journey up to the Toyota store, you've not been a general manager yet. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay, keep going. I'm loving this. Keep going.
So obviously I decided, you know, that the knowledge that I had in the car business was not enough to get me to where I wanted to go. So I found out about NCM school. So I took some time and went to GSM one, GSM two, and GSM Masters with NCM, which I had no clue what it cost, and so I dove in and got that knocked out,
Wait a
and
minute. Were
and
you at the Toyota store at that time?
I was at the Toyota store at that time.
Okay, so you went as an employee from the Toyota store, you went to the NCM training.
Yes.
Okay.
Um, Finished that and then went to um, online and looked for a position on the Gulf Coast, which is where my family pretty much raised me until I was, I still had family there. My aunts and uncles that were still living were there, and in the Biloxi Gulfport area. So I got on LinkedIn and like we all do, Indeed and all those places back in 2018 and said, I want to go to the coast and everybody says, why would you go there? It's not really a market for cars there. And, the big market in Mississippi is right where you're at. It's in Jackson. Um, I knew there was some problems and I knew, Herring Gear was about to sell out and which they ended up doing. And that would cause shifts and, in management and, which happened. All of those things happened. So, I ended up talking to a gentleman, who had an ad out at a Ford store in Biloxi, and um, he didn't have a position. We ended up talking for I don't know, right at a month, and we talked one night, and I said, "Listen, I know you don't have a position. I know you just filled it, even though the ad's still out. And I'm not looking for money or position. I'm really looking for a good guy I can work for, and I think you're that guy." So I really don't give a shit if it's selling cars or whatever. Um, I like to come work for you. He's like, really? I
Who
said,
was
sure.
this? Who was this, Roger? I missed that. Who was this?
That was the general manager at a Ford store by the name of Miles Culberson,
Okay.
and he said, well, I ain't got anybody in my internet department. Uh, that's something you'd be interested in. I said, sure. He's like, really? So you go from a GSM background, GSM schooling, um, to just being in the internet department? I said, sure, because I'll come down there and I'll show you what I'm made of. And then before you know it, you know, I'll be right back to the spot. He says, okay, when can you be here? And I said, I'll be there tomorrow. He's like, really? Well, yeah. Okay. So I left my family, stayed about a month in a hotel. Um, and about 2 months later, I was put on the desk as a sales manager. Probably 6 months later, I was put as the GSM. And probably 2 years later, I was put in the general manager position for the first time and went back to NCM school to GM executive school, which is
Wow.
12 months long. Um, and he paid for the school. I paid for all the expenses. I should have paid for the school and let him pay for the expenses because it was expensive.
Yeah.
Um,
Is that about the time that you and I connected some kind of way? Is that about?
yes, yeah,
Yeah.
yes.
Okay.
So you and I connected after I was in the middle of GM executive school because I was
Okay.
required to read your book. And
That's
when I
funny.
completed the school is when I reached out to you and said, "Hey, I think I have a unique story, and I've read your book, and I would like to write a book." And
Okay, I
you,
remember that now. Yeah.
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 So you said this is how I would do it. Obviously,
Yeah.
here we're 6 years from that conversation. I still haven't wrote a book yet.
It's
Um,
hard to get started.
yeah. And you passed along. After you and I conversated, I was traveling back from NCM school. I just graduated, and you you said, "Hey, you something unique about you. You should come to Clubhouse."
I'll be done.
And I sat in the bottom of Clubhouse for probably the last little bit of the old Clubhouse and then the starting of the new Clubhouse, and didn't say anything for probably a year or two.
And now look
Just
at
listened,
you. Oh my goodness.
just listened, right? And
Yeah.
took it all in. And some of the things I have learned in my career, um, of the what not to do's for sure,
Amen.
but
Amen.
also the what to do's. And I think they're some of the greatest minds in the car business have passed through there
Isn't that
or
something?
are in there now, and it's
Yeah.
free. And
Yeah.
why on earth, why ladies and men across the country would not
I don't
take
know.
advantage of a free platform rather,
It's
um,
like a
was
20 group on steroids. It's amazing the information
yeah,
that's in that room for free.
it mind boggled me. And I'll be honest, I sat down there for a while thinking to myself, you know, dang, I've hit a honey hole and I don't want to tell anybody about it,
Right.
right? Um, but I started sharing, obviously, like most people do, and giving back, and I think one of
Yeah.
the major turning points for me, um, obviously, I met a gentleman in Clubhouse that's turned me into the position that I'm at now. So, being with and being at the gym for the last 3 or 4 years to go to a Toyota store in Georgia, with a group that's top notch guys, came from Clubhouse.
So
Um,
back up. Let's talk about the store that you're at now and that journey to get there. How did that all come about?
wow. Journey definitely. So I went to Texas briefly after
Okay.
being with um, Astro Ford for what felt like forever. Personal friends, just um, certain things you can't do in the car business. And unfortunately, some of those things happen.
All right.
So I looked out to do something different. Also felt like I was in a position to where I developed a team and implemented things that broke every record in every department. And that's from parts to service to hours to grosses you know, and you do that over and over and over, some would say sit tight, right? Enjoy it being easy. But for me, I'll be honest, I got kind of bored with it.
I
I mean, how
understand
many
that.
times can
Yeah.
I mean, I felt like the challenge was there, but not really the challenge was there. So, um, went to take multiple stores in Texas. Unfortunately, that didn't work out for me, and I came back to Mississippi. I didn't sell my house. I kept it, and I took 2 months off
Okay.
and didn't do anything but have
What 2 months
conversation.
Roger, what 2 months was that? Was that in 2024 sometime? Is that when that was?
I was in 24, yes, sir.
Okay.
Yep, here recently.
Okay. Yeah.
And I didn't do anything. I didn't try to get a job. I didn't reach out to anybody. I just spent a lot of time. I was fortunate, right, that I had the ability to do that because not many people do. So
Sure. Sure.
thank God that I had the opportunity to sit in silence.
Absolutely.
And I think that that's what changed my entire career, though.
I'll be
That
darned.
2 months sitting in silence, um,
That's hard to do, isn't it?
immensely difficult for a guy like me
Yeah.
who's, you know, wired different, geared different.
Yeah.
Um, the the intensity, I think, is what Ricky says. The intensity that I bring to dealership every day is like nothing he's seen in the car business.
Yeah.
Very intense. So to sit at home and write out what the future looks like, um, but yet still reflect on the past of what mistakes I made,
Sure.
um, acknowledge those mistakes, um, and plan for something way bigger and better, was probably the most difficult thing I've done in my entire career.
Yeah, I'm sure
Uh,
sitting back and trying to reflect and take a couple of months to do this reflection, that's hard, especially with a person with your energy level. So I can see that. Well, how did you connect with the group that you're with now?
so obviously Clubhouse, I've talked about them. You're there, Tommy, and I think that for me, it it wasn't really about, again, a position, right? Because I think as I looked across and I was getting, a GM offer here, a GM offer there, love to have you here, move to there. I talked to Brian Perez, who is a phenomenal owner, operator. Um, would have loved to work for that guy. And if he would have probably been somewhere down south, I'd be with him, right?
Right.
Just I look for people, not the job per se or the money per se, which obviously those things are very important, right? Because we all have to live, and we all have a standard of living, and we know what our capabilities are for the most part. Um, but I was sitting at home one morning and got a phone call from a gentleman uh, in Clubhouse that said, "Hey, would you go be a GSM at a Toyota store?" And I said, "Well, I don't know. Uh, you know, maybe I would, maybe I wouldn't. I don't know, right? Like,
Yeah,
that's
it's a wide
a
open
loaded
question.
question." And so that was Thomas in Clubhouse.
Mhm.
And he said, "I think you should talk to this guy." And I said, "Okay, I'll talk to him." So I called him. His name was Ricky. Talk about him a lot in Clubhouse and talked about him here already. And he initially told me he don't need anybody. And I said, "Okay, no big deal. Listen, I didn't, I was giving your number by somebody else. Like, I'm not calling to try to get a
Right.
job, right? I just said, hey, somebody said, hey, I should talk to you, and no big deal. Hey,
Right.
and it was kind of, that was kind of the extent of the conversation. It was quick. I mean, it
Right.
was,
Right. Right.
I'm not looking for anybody. I don't need anybody. 10-4, no problem. Well, fast forward, there were some other conversations had, and I reached out to some people, and after being reached out again, like, wait, what are you talking about? Like, okay. Long story short, he and I ended up meeting probably 4 or 5 times. I came back to Georgia, um, and just through conversation, and my wife met him, and because she was, after the debacle in Texas, she had a lot to say about where we went,
I
and
bet. Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
so she we went and met Ricky for lunch, and just a different conversation, right?
Hmm.
And he won her over, and you could tell he was genuine, and so um, she said, "I think this is where we should be." So we obviously negotiated and talked, and I wanted to understand what he needed and what he wanted and where we were going, and he kind of wanted to maybe one day, if it all worked out, kind of pass the torch and uh, be able to pick the guy that takes over something he's built and put his heart and soul in for 15, 20 years. And um, so it was an honor. It was an honor to be picked number one for something like that, which is really different, right? Usually you get the knock on the door and a couple guys sit down and they say your time's over, right? Um, to be able to call your own shot and the day you're going to retire and who's going
Yeah.
to take your spot. I mean, that if that doesn't scream job well done, I'm not sure
Yeah.
what
Yeah. It
does.
does. Yeah.
So I started reflecting on those things and went back home and said, damn, what an opportunity. Maybe I could do that one day. And so that led me to where I'm at now, and obviously we have you know been able to do some pretty remarkable things pretty quickly, and it's
So Roger,
it's
tell us where you are now, because we don't know where you are.
so I'm at sorry. Not too bad. Sorry about that. I'm at Valdosta Toyota in Valdosta, Georgia.
Okay.
Yeah. Um,
And who owns that?
Second,
Who owns that?
the Butler family owns it, Marsh and Morris Butler,
Yeah.
which
Kevin's
is
people.
the
Kevin's
main
husband.
reason. Yeah, the main reason I didn't take, I had some big Ford deals, obviously coming from Ford and being the first mobile service guy, to pull out mobile service and F550s and, really take on that when kind of everybody was scared of it and you're not going to make money and, yada, yada, yada. Anyway,
Right.
um, to get out of the Ford realm, um, was not easy, because I still drive a Ford, you know, uh, I love the product, have, you know, I can't tell you how long. It's just, the Ford Mustang. I've owned GT500s and
Yeah,
F250 vehicles, and I mean,
I
it's
get
just,
it.
yeah,
Yeah,
it's just part of kind of who you become.
I
When
understand.
you're really good at something, you got to believe in it and own it. And I went down that road with them, and I don't regret, the time I've spent with Trent Cannon and the Ford Direct and innovation and product and all those things that I was allowed to be a part of were great teaching tools for me, and really grateful I had the opportunity that I did. And but the main reason, um, I took this journey, as part of my book. I'll eventually write one, Tommy.
Yeah, yeah,
Uh,
you will. You
your
will.
help.
It's gonna be a great
But
book.
well, thank you. Is because of those guys and their ability to allow a general manager to run a store and make decisions and not be handcuffed, and I think they genuinely care about people, and that's just not it's not normal in the car business. We talk about it, but it isn't normal, right?
I get you.
And
Yeah.
I think they are,
I
and
love hearing Kevin talk about his job and what he does there and how he's allowed to run his store. So it sounds like to me you're in a really good spot.
I I think I am. I believe I am, and
Yeah.
I think that we've
Even if it is a crappy franchise like Toyota, you'll be okay.
right. It's I it's crazy because I hear that often, right? And I hear people talk about Patrick Abad and he's
Yeah.
only there because he has a Toyota dealership, and I'm like, that's not. We just don't show up and it happens.
No.
Like that's not.
Right.
It's not. I mean, is it any easier or better than Ford? My response would be no, right? It's just as difficult,
Sure.
probably
Sure.
more difficult because the Toyota consumer demands way more
Yeah.
than a Ford consumer does.
Yeah.
So in an aspect, I would tell you that it's more difficult, not easier. So when you have a guy like that, the Kevins, the Patricks that are in these Lexuses and Toyota stores, there are many Toyota stores that are suffering, that aren't hitting numbers,
Yeah. Yeah.
that
Sure.
aren't doing well. So I think they take away from that guy a lot, and it shouldn't be. I think he should be recognized as one of the best in
Absolutely.
the country,
Yeah.
especially to do it in SCTF, which is a little more difficult in my opinion. So I reach out to him. He's definitely I wouldn't call him a mentor, but I would call him definitely somebody,
Sure.
a leader in the industry that I look up to, that if I have a question, Toyota related or business related, he's a guy that I do
He's the
reach out to.
bomb. Roger, with your deep roots to Ford, um, and being, such a part of Ford for so long, what have you noticed the difference between working with SET and the way your relationship was with Ford? Is there any major difference, pros or cons in this new relationship that you're having to deal with SET?
Tommy, I would say Toyota has, I think they've gotten it to a degree that I've never seen before, right? Their experience level of their DOMs
Hmm.
um, is incredible.
Yeah.
Like their level of professionalism as a manufacturer is, I don't know that anybody does it better.
The people
Um,
seem to really understand the retail car business more so than a lot of the other manufacturers.
well, not only do they, I think I agree with you. I think you're exactly right, but I think their level of education and care for the dealer is just
Yeah.
different.
Yeah.
I mean, I can, in this particular position, even though I'm not the general manager, as a GSM, like there's not a phone call that doesn't get answered. There's not a question that doesn't get resolved.
Right.
Um, there's not an importance of anything that I send in an email or a text message to Toyota that does not happen and happen quickly. Whereas I think Ford hires a lot of out of college
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
graduates that
Yeah.
that churn,
Yeah.
right? It's hard for them to really get acquainted and accustomed because then when they need somebody else because somebody else quit, they're moved up into a position really they probably shouldn't be moved up into yet. So I think to answer your question, between the two manufacturers, I would say that hands down, it's not even comparable.
Right. Yeah. I was a Toyota dealer at one time, and I really value the relationship with their people. That kind of some of the things you're saying here as well. They just seem to do everything they can to help you retail cars, and you don't feel like they're pulling against you or trying to shove crap at you. They're working with you. Roger, the Toyota store that you're at now, is it called Valdosta Toyota? What's it called?
Yes, sir.
Toyota. Okay. Do they in terms of the number of retail units that were selling before you got there, what was their count, total new and used, on average, just a rough number?
It depends. I mean, if you were to average it, I would say it would be somewhere in the neighborhood of they've done 200
Okay.
consistently.
New and
Um,
used, new and used.
yes,
Okay.
sir.
Hmm.
Um, but I would tell you that in the last 2 years has kind of went
Got you.
um, or else I
Well,
wouldn't be here, right. They don't get rid of guys that are moving the
right.
needle
Well, I
consistently.
guess
So
the real part of that question I wanted to dig into is where do you think you can take them? What kind of numbers do you kind of have in your head that you feel you guys can get to with the staff you have and with growing your staff or whatever? Where do you want to take it?
well, I think there's certain things that have to happen for us to be able to do what I think we're capable of doing. And unfortunately, some of those things are out of my control currently. But I think that they will be in my control soon enough. So to answer your question in a nutshell, I think that we can do easily 300 and then to 400.
Okay.
And, I think for the space that I have here, um, 500 will be tipping it to be able to house what I have per
Hmm.
se, to be able to turn that amount before we would have to look at some kind of facility upgrade to be able to, number one, house the units in operation or coming back through service and et cetera, et cetera. But I think if you look at market share for where we were versus where we are, you got to get back to that level first and then start to move it.
Right.
You know what I mean? So
Yeah. It's a
how
balancing act, isn't it? To get your numbers up to where it doesn't choke the place to death. But if you get the numbers up, we got to build a new place.
Well, it's that triangle, right? It's that, how do you effectively market your market spend versus the amount of salespeople you have versus the amount of inventory you have on the ground. So when your inventory is 40 new cars, I mean, I don't need 20 salespeople to sell 40 new cars, and I certainly don't need to
Yeah.
spend $100,000 doing it.
Yeah.
So, um, it is a delicate balance right now trying to earn back what we lost, first of all. And, to get to a 60, plus percent turn rate, we'll definitely get to this year, which will be higher than SCT. I do think we will turn higher on average than SCT. We have in the last 4 months, but 59.4 is the projection for this month. I think we will hit that. We've hit every objective since
Awesome.
putting the team together in October. Um, this month is a big number because, when you sell completely out of cars for, you know, for January or for December, to end the year, uh, which they said, don't worry about it, just sell them. We'll figure it out later, right? Well, we'll get you the cars. We'll get you the cars. Well, I find out that's not really the case. So we sold completely out, hit almost 65%, which is hadn't been done, and they
Incredible.
can't tell me when. They don't know. Um, just hats off to my people because they
Sure.
absolutely killed it. Well, the only flip side to that is you're not going to see that inventory for another 90 to 120 days. So that makes January and February very difficult. So my conversations that, when we did this, we better get good in used cars and get good in used cars quickly. So we got in with David Long and started his buying center, which if
Great. Yeah.
if your audience doesn't know what that's like or who that is, or
Yeah.
that guy
Yeah. He's
is
got his poop in one shoe.
it,
He knows
it
what he's
is
doing.
he absolutely. I haven't changed. And everybody asks me, what was I going to change? What are you going to do? Are you going to do it this way? I said, listen, I'm going to do it exactly the way he has it written.
Hey,
Um, and just take the money to the bank, right? So we
amen.
we we signed our contract with Van this morning, which I haven't even told David about yet. I haven't had a chance to call him. We've been just super swamped, but which is Vehicle Acquisition Network,
Yeah.
which has been enormously
David
great.
swears, David swears by them.
Listen, I know why he does.
Yeah.
Through two demos and listen, I'm the guy that tries to tear the product apart, um, to see where all the holes and problems, and it's the first product that I've not been able to rip to shreds to say, why doesn't it do this? Well, why come it doesn't do that? And you need to be
Right.
doing this. I don't know why my brain works that way, but it does. And I couldn't find one thing that I would
Yeah.
say I would change about anything that thing does. So, um, I think that's one area we've got, we've got some things cooking.
You're
I
gonna
don't
kill
want, yeah, I don't want to pull everything out for everybody, but I can tell you what I learned to go back. We kind of got off the subject, but I think anybody who knew me prior to the 2 months off from Texas to here, um, would say that I'm not the same person anymore.
Huh.
Um, that my approach is different. My I call them give a shit sticks, right?
Yeah.
That if we aren't eating those pretty regularly and daily, then what really is our purpose? So I had a, I was that guy, right? I was that high intensity, that that there really isn't one way, but there's only one way, and that's Roger's way. Um,
Yeah.
I got a chance to reflect during those 2 months and realize that, for my whole life, I've been told I was the 1%. You're a 1%er. You're a 1%er.
Yeah.
Well, then do the math on 1% of 8 billion people. You're not really that scarce. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
so what I started to do is try to figure out a better way. And to your point, and the reason I agreed to come on the show is, what's your story? I would tell you that it intrigued me that you reached out to me because my story has changed dramatically.
This is
So
amazing. Yeah.
what a hell of a podcast you got. Kudos to you. Um, but what I would tell you is you can change your story.
Wow. Listen to this. This is awesome. Say that one more time.
You can change your story.
Yeah.
And so
You
my
just have to
story,
want to do it, don't you?
and listen, it's hard for a guy
Yeah.
like me,
Yeah.
Tommy, it was
Yeah.
difficult, right? But I went into a different mindset of, you know, we talk about it a lot, but in my next venture, whatever that may be, and I had no idea it would be Toyota,
Right.
talking with Kevin and, they didn't have a spot and I just said, I'm not going to take just whatever, right?
Right.
It has to map with the story of where I want to go. And so I came up with three things and it's not anything I've thought up on my own. And, I can't take any credit for it by any means. But what I will tell you is that I came with three principles to this dealership. And I said at day one that I would not waver on any of those three things, no matter what. And if I had somebody who did or wasn't, then we would have a very short, candid conversation and we would move forward. And
I'm
that
writing
is,
these three things down, so I'm ready for you. Go for it. Let's
so,
go.
you got to love to work. So I want to, I want to recruit people that love to work. And that's to actually come to work, not to come to work to wait or to hang out or to whatever. You got to love to work. The second thing I put out was you got to love people. Because some would say I'm in the people business, but what I would tell you is you're in the people pleasing business, and there is a stark difference. You can be in the people business all day long and run people off.
Right.
If you're not in the people pleasing business, then I'm not sure why you're in this business. And the third thing is you got to serve others, right? So if you can't do those three things, I let it be known day one, October the 1st, that you could not and would not be on my team if those three things didn't align with you every single day.
Yeah.
So I'll tell you the game changer for us here is I would love for anybody to come and visit, and some have. And I think you'll see though, if you don't see anything else, I
That's
would
awesome.
I would certainly say you will see those three things. My people love people.
How many
And
months have you been there, Roger?
so I got here October 1st.
That's a pretty short length of time to be able to get that culture kind of ingrained in everyone.
Well, I told the sales managers they would lose 25% of their staff in the first month. And I told them they would lose 25% more of their staff in the second month. But after that, we would
We
be
got a
on
good
the,
staff after that.
yeah, that we would be on the road to building the culture
Yeah,
that I believe sustains itself because I didn't want to come here and build it and then have to rebuild it, then have to rebuild it and have to rebuild
absolutely.
it. So I see this and we hear it. I'm sure you've heard it thousands of times in your career that you have a guy that leaves and then it goes to shit.
Right.
So how do we as leaders prevent that from happening? And secondly, if I was going to take over the general manager spot when Ricky retires and he finally passes the baton, whatever day or year or month that may be, am I going to have to go back in and be the GSM again?
Right.
Because most general managers in the industry, I think you would agree, are also the GSM because they just can't, for whatever reason, relinquish the control or find the right guy and culture that they're not constantly rebuilding. So for me, I think I owed it to the Butler organization if I was going to come here to build it one time the right way. Um, and I couldn't think of in 2 months the things that I would believe that would build and maintain a culture of knowing up front that if you're going to work here, these three things must take place. And if those three things don't take place, then you're not going to work here. So there's not really any point in us moving forward. Um, Also changed it to where salespeople get to hire their comrades.
Yeah, I heard you talking about that the other day. That's pretty powerful.
I don't hire anybody.
Hmm.
They It's their team. They work every day together collectively to win or to tie or to lose. Right. So every day we meet and we figure out whether we won the day, we tied the day, or lost the day. That lets us know what tomorrow needs to look like. And when you have your team, when you have salespeople telling other salespeople, get off your phone, it's not what we do. Don't do that. This is the right way to do it. Or, hey, let me show you. This is what Roger meant, or Brett meant, or Blake meant. When they start holding themselves to an accountability standard, things get really, really different. And you can't do that if they don't ever have a voice.
Right.
For being a salesperson and feeling like I just didn't have a voice, that no one cared, they didn't listen. Task, task, task. You got 15 overdue tasks. Like, you know, we get out of that chair and it's like we forget who they were and who we were and the struggles that we had. And um, when you truly care about other people and you serve others besides yourself,
Yeah, it makes it easy. It makes it easier
this is really easy.
and
It's
long
really
lasting.
oh
Yeah.
yeah,
I've got two final questions because you've
sure,
got work to do. I know you're jammed up today. I want to ask you two final questions and let you go to work.
sure.
Um, Number one, if you could paint a perfect picture for yourself, what would you see yourself doing 20 years from now? Because you're a young guy, you got a lot of road in front of you. What would you see yourself doing? Would you own a chain on one store? What would be a perfect world for you?
Hmm. Um, well, I've never been asked that question. 20 years from now, I'll be 68. So,
You still be young.
Tommy, I don't know that I want to own a dealership.
Okay, that's not
Um,
nothing wrong with
I
that.
think, yeah, I mean, I've owned part of a Ford store. 1%'s not shit. So I guess they say you don't really own anything until you own 51, right? Um, but I don't know that that's my, and most would say, man, you got such a potty mouth. Why? But I've been told since I was 13 years old, I should be a preacher. Um,
I could see that. Yeah, I could see that.
and I should pastor. I think 20 years from now, I probably would like to have. Um, I would hope the Lord would bless me enough if that is the case. That I would take that money and maybe pasture a small
That's
local.
wonderful. Wow.
Yeah.
I like that. Is really awesome. Okay, here's my final question. What would you say has been you've been very successful and you're going to continue to have a lot of success. What would you say is that one attribute that you have that has contributed to your success that people need to understand, whatever that is? What has that been?
Discipline.
Okay. And do you think that
What
happened from the military, or how did that come about in your life that you have this discipline about you?
I mean, I grew up very poor, um, very poor.
That'll
Uh,
create discipline.
I mean, yeah, I'm a Gen X, right?
Yeah,
So I would when you meet Gen X people, you can tell that there's just something about us, I guess, that's maybe a little different. I don't know if it's the time frame we were born or the era or what, but I think that I I uh when you join the military and you're a military police officer, which is a little bit of a different set of disciplines. Um, I think that in, when you when you go overseas, Tommy, and you see the opportunity that we have in the United States,
yeah,
you the average American has no idea,
correct.
no idea.
We take it all for granted.
You just have no
Yeah,
idea. So for me, being over in a war-torn country, for 11 months to see how young children, women can't even ride in the front seat of a car,
Mm,
um, no
crazy.
rights. Um,
Mm,
they're sold and bought like groceries. The level of education, opportunity, um, technology. I mean, how far advanced we are to a place like Bosnia. Um, I think that's what really changed my life.
yeah,
That
yeah,
I would be and never let an opportunity through lack of hard work and doing it when no one else wants to do it, finding a way when everybody says there's not a way. So I would think discipline. Yeah, I mean, my life has consisted of a lot of um, trial and seeing the other side. Most of us think, I guess, a quarter just has one side, but it definitely has two. Um, so that will, for me, military is only 3% of the population that will ever go and lay their life on a line for somebody else. And
yeah.
and, and every chance I get to shake and touch a veteran of this country is it's different. Um, and it I don't know that you can. I think you either probably have it or you don't. It's very difficult to explain discipline in a non-broad scope of why someone has the discipline and others don't. And I think that
Yeah.
has a lasting, long, lifelong um, implications of why someone is and someone isn't. Um, but when you've seen some of the things that some of our military see, um, and then you come back to the States, you you feel like there's not um, a lot of time, so that the time that you do have, you cherish the shit out of it and you make it
Yeah.
count.
Yeah. Certainly
So for me,
changes your level of gratitude, doesn't it?
undescribable. I
Yeah.
mean, I say it all the time. I say, thank yous are free. It doesn't cost us anything, but why can't we say it?
I don't know, bro. I don't
Uh,
know.
I've got a thing that, I don't really care who is the customer is or the guest that's visiting or whatever. If I've got somebody walking into this building, somebody better open the door for them. Like, where did
Yeah.
those,
Yeah.
Southern American values go?
Yeah.
So, um, my people will run to a door now, to
Amen.
make sure that your greeting is not, I mean, what it is everywhere else. I mean, we have an opportunity to make an impact on somebody's life every day. That could be positive or negative. And why we choose anything other than
Yeah.
to, um, you know, if I gave you all the riches in the world, Tommy, all the money, all the gold, all the
Yeah.
cars, the big house, and all that, but I put you in an island by yourself, you probably won't last 6 months because every human being needs other human beings. And for
Absolutely. Yeah.
whatever
Yeah.
reason, we don't really put enough emphasis on that. So that 2 months that I had time to reflect, um, I wanted to be more honoring of people.
I'm thinking
So,
about taking 2 months off, Roger.
well,
Roger, speaking of thank you, I need to thank you for your time today. I mean, this has been really amazing. I've known of you, kind of know who you are, but I didn't know a lot about your story. And I can't thank you enough for being willing to share that with myself and the audience here. So I know you need to get back to work, and I want to get you back out there because you need to be selling cars and thanking people and keeping the people going. But Roger, besides discipline, one of the things you got grit, Bubba. You got grit, and that along with discipline will continue to carry you a long way. Thank you so much for being here today.
thank you, Tommy. And listen, I'm a huge fan. Obviously, you know that I've read your book.
I appreciate
Um,
it.
I reached out to you. I think you're in an industry.
That's right.
leader with just impeccable morals and character. And God bless you, man. And if there's anything I can do for you, definitely reach out.
You did a lot for me by being on this podcast. Thank you. And to the viewers, thank y'all for tuning in today. We really appreciate it and look forward to the next podcast. I'll let you know who that's going to be. But Roger, thank you again. Folks, have a great day. Thank you, Roger.
Thank you, sir.
Roger Hendon. What a great story. And I just want to take a moment to personally thank you for tuning into the podcast and taking time to watch this. I've always been amused by people and their journey and their successes and even their failures. And so this little podcast series titled "What's Your Story" is my way of learning about people and sharing that with you. Thanks again for taking time to do this. You are appreciated. Have a great day. See you. Bye.